always a pleasure when former Major Leaguer Josh Towers hops on set with us here. Josh, great to have you here. We're almost to the second season. We're not quite there yet.
Third season for us.
Third season for you guys.
Yeah.
All right. Do you say, wait, you count like training camp as season
it's
one?
awesome. Yeah, it's this whole different world. It's so much fun. It's probably the most fun baseball we actually play.
Amal and I were talking about this a little bit earlier on with the Metropolitans. Obviously, I hate the term like long-suffering Mets fan. Like, dude, we went to the World Series in 2015. It hasn't been that long. Won it in 86. Yeah. Like, I'm old, so 86 still sustains me. Do you look at this? Because I don't think Amal and I do. It's not a choke job by the Mets. It's been unbelievable baseball the Braves are playing.
Yes, just like last year, right? Second half of the season, these guys went crazy, and that offense is loaded. Obviously, we know that. The pitching staff has gotten better. Kyle Wright came out of nowhere. 2 months ago, we weren't even talking about this kid as a Cy Young Award winner. He has 21 wins now. So, again, the pitching staff has really stepped up. I think the bullpen has done a really good job at starting to, solidify itself where they want to. I think that was the biggest inconsistency for Atlanta, probably the first half of the season. On the flip side, New York's Mets pitching staff with Maygill and all the boys, Carrasco, and obviously Bassett was really good. They just took off. And then anybody who filled in for Jacob or Max Scherzer did well as well, right? So it's just a role reversal. I have a hard time with this, and you guys, we were talking about it off air. I think the Mets are set up perfectly for any three-game set, and they have two of obviously the best, if not the best in the game. Let's say of the best, right? Because we got JV over there too in Houston. But they are not playing good baseball, and I've never seen Jacob deGrom. Now, again, I've said this a million times. Guys like me, if we go 6-3, we're very happy with our career. It's Jacob deGrom struggling at 6-3.
Right.
6 innings and 3 runs, and we've seen this a lot with him lately. I don't know what's going on, but again, I talked to you guys about this. When he faced the Braves a little while ago, and he all of a sudden decided he was going to pitch in against them out of nowhere, it altered everything about what he was very successful with down and away every pitch. And I don't know if he's tinkering with this. And then you have the inconsistency of the Mets offense. And I'm not trying to put your team down because they are very talented, but the offense isn't going to carry him. It has to be the pitching, and Max gets no run support anyways, right?
And that Braves lineup is just loaded for bear. I mean, it really is. So that it's a clear, to me, that's where the advantage lies. So the Mets have the pitching when DeGrom is right as the best three.
Yeah.
But that lineup for the ATL 1 through 9 is just it's better than the Mets.
And goes back to something we've always talked about. We've always known the All-Star game, right, Amal? Good pitching will beat a good offense any day of the week. I don't care who. If I'm locked in, it doesn't matter how good Atlanta's team is. If I'm locked in, it doesn't matter. It's over, right? So if the Mets pitching staff can get locked in, then they're just fine. But are we going to trust guys to go a little deeper? Are we trusting our bullpen? Buck Showalter's never been the best manager in the postseason. That's my biggest issue with all of this.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out now. You're right. I mean, you look at his track record. New York, right? He leaves. Joe Torre comes in. They win 5 World Series.
Arizona too, I think.
Arizona,
I think he was the man before the win, right? Yeah.
Before Brentley came in, Texas.
So next year, load up on the Mets in the future.
What was recently like the Mets? Baltimore was in the postseason. They had that loaded team, right? And then they couldn't really do anything as well. And that was same thing, 15, 17, somewhere around there.
Yeah, he always feels like, I don't want to say caretaker, but he's that guy that gets you on the precipice of, but has a tough time getting across the finish line. I'm not going to put this at the feet of Buck, because I felt like they didn't do enough. And Mets fans have said this all the time, that they didn't do enough of the trade deadline to get more offense. And
they felt very good about their offense. That's the problem, dude. I don't know if they really evaluated what was really their success and their failures. And you got Pete Alonso and Lindor, but you got Starlin Marte, who's not even game ready right now.
That's the biggest
That's
problem.
a massive deal for him.
Problem.
So at plus 850, I don't know if they're playable. Now, they were 5-1 to win the World Series last week. Now they're plus 850. Look, I'm trying to take my homer hat off here and look at it objectively. I actually like the Braves better at 5-1 now, even though that number's been shorted, because the road, they don't have to go through the Dodgers until potentially the NLCS.
Well, that's where I disagree with you. I think it's easier to beat the Dodgers 3 out of 5 than it is 4 out of 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where I think playing the Dodgers in the next round is in the division series is a little bit easier. For me, the big issue, Josh, is the Metropolitans have to face potentially Darvish and Musgrove. Musgrove has been very good this year. Darvish has had more quality starts than anybody in baseball. You mentioned the Marte injury. That's a concern. DeGrom has struggled over his last several starts. You saw in Atlanta over the weekend, he was in a little bit of trouble there. I think Atlanta right now, they're playing with confidence. They're the defending champions. They are the last team I want to face right now overall.
Yeah, looking at our list, right? I hear you with the Braves because – and again, the reference is always to the NFL, right? Like the teams coming in hot who haven't had a couple weeks off because they clinched early. They always seem to have that momentum and rhythm, and it's very, very important. the Braves are still currently and just took over the lead for the division race. Like, that's a massive deal to win your division and or just get in the postseason. And so they're playing their best baseball of the year at the end of the year, beating the team who they needed to beat in the New York Mets to win the division potentially. And now you're going to go into the postseason with all that money. I mean, no one's had days off.
No.
Rightfully so. They don't need it. The pitching staff has gotten better. I agree. I think they're very dangerous. I also, again, you guys know how I feel about the Astros. And the Astros haven't taken any days off either. Yeah. These boys are still going through. My biggest question mark of all is Los Angeles Dodgers. That's my biggest question mark. I mean, I can make a case for almost every team on here, but I just don't see where's the Dodgers pitching staff that's going to get them through any series. Is it their bullpen? What is it?
And the shortest favorite on the board at plus 350 for LA to win the World Series. And I think that's just expectation level, kind of cruising all year to get there. And by the way, Braves and Mets, they did meet in the NLCS. Yes, I'm still scarred from 99. Kenny Rogers out there, and Bobby V doesn't go to the bullpen and get Octavio Dotel, who's just still waiting there, I believe. I think he's still warming up that right arm. Josh, this is something Amal and I were discussing earlier. I want to know what it's like for you as a player in the last couple games here, how we handicap. Like, let's say the Mets today in that double dip with the Nats. How do you even try?
Sorry, buddy. The last couple months, the whole season's obviously a pretty nice season to bet baseball. The last week and a half-ish, 2 weeks, has been a little bit more difficult, right? This last week's almost impossible. I mean, here's the deal. My bags are packed. Cars are already shipped, right? My flights I already know where I'm going. It's all that stuff. You don't know who's going to take what. I took it personal because I didn't feel like I got as many starts as I always wanted to or innings, and I knew right now, like I think I pitched the last day of the season almost every year for Toronto because I was like, yeah, I'll go in 4, I'll go in 3, I'll go in, just give it to me, I'll take it because I wanted that extra start. I wanted those extra innings, and I knew that they would have 0 pitch count with me. There would be no reservation. We're already out, so I'm not going to pull Josh. And so it gave me the confidence to do whatever I wanted. Not everybody approaches that. Like, boys were out last night, I promise you. Right? There's dudes in the lineup right now. Again, my check money and my cash has already been paid to everybody in the clubhouse. Like, my brain's out. Like, for most of us, we're checked out. So it's almost – look at yesterday's games. I think it was yesterday, the day before. Maybe it was yesterday. There's a lot of games that, like, if you go through the list, you're like, didn't see that, didn't see that, didn't see that.
So they're not grinding ABs,
no,
right? It's
God,
a different,
no.
just a different vibe.
I said nobody wants to go into the offseason having to rehab.
No.
Right.
We're good, man. We got vacations planned. We got Vegas. They'll be down here watching the playoffs with us.
So let's talk about the playoffs here real quick, Josh, while we have you. Looking at potential, this is what the first round is going to break down as Tampa at Cleveland, Seattle at Toronto, Philadelphia at St. Louis, Padres at Mets.
Currently,
okay. Correct. Padres, Mets could flip. Seattle just has to win one more game. They'll lock up that spot to go take on the Toronto Blue Jays. When you look at this one, give me your selections if you were to do it as of right now based on what the projections are today. Could change if the Padres lose their last 2 games and the Phillies win the last 2 games.
Yeah, what do we got? I got a couple minutes. Good. At first, I see the Seattle and Toronto game if that stays that way, and it's in Toronto, correct?
Right. All 3 games are going to be played at the home team site, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sunday's an if necessary game.
That's kind of cool. I got it. Again, we talked about this. I think Seattle's one of the most dangerous teams coming in. Yeah. They always seem to score early, which sets the tone. That offense is beautiful. You got Robbie Ray going back to his own stopping grounds, right? Like, I just think you got Castillo, who just got that new contract, who he's happy. I think this is a very dangerous team. It puts a lot of pressure on the Blue Jays. I'll say this, and I know this is almost irrelevant for some people, but it's so important because you had to play there to understand. The Toronto Blue Jays front office needs to put zero advertisements. That, like, because Ichiro would always come in. And then it would just be like all the advertisements for them. They advertise the other team more than we seem to advertise ourselves. Mm-hmm. They need to act like Seattle's not even showing up. They need no advertisements that represent anything from Seattle. And I say that with massive importance because it makes you feel more at home and it brings their fan base a little bit closer. So Toronto has to be very careful with what they do with all the pregame stuff. I think they're in trouble anyways. But they have to be careful because you don't want these guys to feel comfortable at home. The Tampa-Cleveland series is interesting to me. Because Kevin Cash doesn't have the team he usually has with all these relievers where he can just go at it nonstop over and over again. He only has Glass now at 3 or 4, maybe 5 innings. Kluber has been very inconsistent. We got the lefty who's very young, who's way past his peak of innings. And McClanahan, yeah. And so Cash, he has to hope that his entire bullpen is rested and he has to use these guys in such a way that he can get the max value out of it. I don't know if he has that team. With that said, it's up to Cleveland's pitching staff to go 6 innings at least because that's the tone set for that bullpen, but also their offense has to continue to put the ball in play and not let these power arms. So this is a very interesting series to me where I don't really know where to go with it.
Do you like the new format? Because
3 games in a row in my place? Yeah, I love it.
So like that's the advantage, right, of being the higher seed.
You talk about all hands on deck. I mean, you got 18
man.
innings for your season. I mean, technically you can go to 27, but the reality of it is you got to get it done in the first game.
But I can also argue that I can also argue that it makes it equally as comfortable for both teams to an extent. Like, I don't like 2 games here, get on the road, get your flight, and go.
I agree.
I don't really like that either because we're like in and out of bags and it's really quick. So you're giving me like, I know I'm getting a better hotel room. I know that. Phillies and Cardinals. Too much, in my opinion. Too much. Yadier Molina, Albert Pujols, well deserved, by the way. Wainwright, well-deserved. All this, everything they're getting is well-deserved, man. These are Hall of Famers and stuff that we won't see for a very long time, if ever. I think it's a distraction going into the postseason, right? I think they have to relock on that team, and I think it's going to be hard, and the Phillies are actually playing a little bit better baseball. I think Bryce is starting to heat up. I know he hasn't hit very many homers, but it hasn't been about that, right? It's been about winning. And then I think Nola's pitching better. Obviously, Zach, they have 2 guys that can step up at any moment and be great, too. So I think the Cardinals might be in trouble. And then I look at your boys. As much as we just spoke about your boys and the Padres just aren't the team. They just don't have the pitching staff. You, Darvish, for sure, but I don't think Musgrove. Obviously, you guy pitching today, Manaea, not it.
If it stays the way it is, I'm with you. I think the Phillies are going to be a live underdog against St. Louis in that series. That could be a very interesting.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds. Listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN Sports Betting Podcasts.